Have you tried to learn German? Have you struggled and struggled and struggled and not got anywhere? Or have you tried to teach German to somebody? In either case, what if I told you that there was a way in which to learn German where you can reduce the time it takes you to learn German by about anywhere between 66 and 75%? What you do is, if you have 2,000 words, the 2,000 most frequently used words in the language, that's the vocabulary. Now, if you add to that, if you add the standard German Hochdeutsch grammar rules to that, obviously, depending on your motivation and level of ability, it could take you up to, I'm guessing here, 2 years at a guess. If you took the same vocabulary and you applied the grammar rules of my new survival German to it, which is basically based on the grammar of the beautiful Afrikaans language, you could do this in 6 to 9 months, and at the end of it, be able to communicate. Germans would understand you. I've tested this with a little story, which you can see in one of the other videos, Cartoon Story. I read that story out to 35, 40 Germans and said to them, do you understand it? And every single one of them understood it. It's a lot easier to understand than, say, Swiss German, Schweizerdeutsch, or Swabian. So yeah, it does work. If you speak it like that, the Germans will understand you. Your standard German will understand you. And you will also start to understand about 80%, 85, 90% of what they're saying on the basis of the vocabulary you've learned and at least the basic structures that you've learned. So this video, basically, I'm going to cover 2 of the biggest changes. It's a sort of overview video. And 2 of the biggest changes that I've made in going from standard Hochdeutsch, standard German, to survival German, and that is the nouns and the verbs. Now, the nouns in German, right, if you have a spoon, a fork, and a knife. Okay, so the spoon, der Löffel, right, gender. The fork, die Gabel. The knife, das Messer. Okay, so the first questions that my students always ask me is like, why? Why that? Why der Löffel but die Gabel? What makes a spoon masculine, even grammatically masculine, and the fork feminine? There's no reason. It's a matter of convention. It's the same thing that if you say, why is a traffic light? Why do we stop for a red traffic light and go for through a green traffic light? It's because it's agreed upon. It's a convention. With traffic lights, this makes sense because it prevents car accidents. With der, die, das, it makes no sense whatsoever because you have languages. You have English, you have Afrikaans, you have Mandarin Chinese, you have lots of languages that don't use grammatical gender at all. It's as useful as the appendix, the human appendix. We don't really need it, but there it is anyway. So the first change is no more der, die, das. Bye-bye der, die, das. We use only de. In English we have the. In Afrikaans we have die. Die seun, die Frau, die Mann. And when you bring the and die together, you now have the new German, the survival German, de, die. De Mann und de Frau und de Kind gehen in de Stadt und essen de Kuchen mit de Löffel. That's it. End of story. Done and dusted. Which brings us to our second change. In standard German, you have something that is even more puzzling to German learners than the der, die, das, which is the case system, Kasus. So you have the Nominativ, Genitiv, Dativ, and Akkusativ. Which is basically, when you have a sentence, like, let's have a sentence, der Löffel ist schwer, the spoon is heavy. Okay, so it's der Löffel because it is der Löffel, and it's the subject of the sentence, therefore it is said to be the nominative, and in the nominative it's der Löffel. Now let's make another sentence. Let's say, I see the spoon. Ich sehe. Now in English it would be ich sehe der Löffel, if it was the same structure. And not so in German. Ich sehe den Löffel, den. Why? Because it's the direct object, and the direct object is in the so-called accusative case, and in the accusative case, der becomes den. Why? Who knows? Who cares? Anyway, moving on. So let's say that I decide to eat with my spoon. So now, ich esse mit. Now you would think den Löffel perhaps, because we just had that. No. Ich esse mit dem Löffel. Why? Because mit, the preposition mit, is a so-called dative preposition, dative preposition, and is always followed by the dative. So ich esse mit dem Löffel. Okay, let's go one further. Let's say you put something on the spoon, like a lump of sugar, right? Der Zuckerwürfel. So now I put it on the spoon. So in English, I put the lump of sugar on the spoon. It is now on the spoon. Same. In German, ich lege den Zuckerwürfel auf den Löffel, den. Jetzt liegt er auf dem, dem Löffel. Why? Because auf is a Wechselpräposition. It's a preposition which can be either dative or accusative, depending on whether it answers the question where or the question where to. If it answers the question where, wo, then it's dative. Der Zuckerwürfel liegt auf dem Löffel. If it answers the question wohin, it's accusative. Ich lege den Zuckerwürfel auf den Löffel. Right, now, if somebody came walking to your house and talked in this confused, all over the place gibberish, you'd basically take them to the local psychiatrist because it doesn't, they're not making any sense. They are just not making any sense. But in German grammar, it's considered to be, well, that's what it is. Good luck, live with it. Right? So there's the second change. No more nominative, genitive, dative, akkusativ. Everything is de. As I said before the sentence, der Mann, die Frau und das Kind gehen in die Stadt und essen den Kuchen mit dem Löffel, like that. The man and the woman, the child go to town and they eat the cake with a spoon. Everything with de. No more dative, accusative, genitive, none of that nonsense. So that's nouns. So that's a big one. Believe me, that's a big one. Next up, verbs. Now with verbs, you have three categories of verbs. You have the imperative, the form of command. Won't do that now, I'll do it in a separate video. You have the conjunctive, I think it's in English, it's a subjunctive, the form of possibility. If it were to rain tomorrow, I would need an umbrella, that kind of thing. Also a separate video. So in this video, I'll just address the big one, which is the present, past, and future tense. Right. So in Afrikaans, it's beautiful, it's contextual. You get the meaning from the context. So let's say you're eating, since we're busy with spoons and things. Ek eet, jy eet, hy of sy eet, ons eet, julle eet, hulle eet. It's just eat. That's it. Eat, double E-T. And you know who's eating because of the pronoun or the noun. In English, I eat, you eat, he, she, it eats. We eat, you plural eat, they eat. Little bit, there's one little conjugation. In German, ich esse, I-double-S-E. Du isst, I-double-S-T. Es isst, I-double-S-T. Wir essen, ihr esst, sie essen. Why? Who knows? Nehmen, to take. Ich nehme, du nimmst, er, sie, es nimmt. Wir nehmen, ihr nehmt, sie nehmen. It's all over the place. Even the present tense is all over the place. So the present tense, as of now, for survival German, if it's the first, second, or third person plural, use the so-called infinitive. That is the verb before it gets conjugated. In English, that would be to sit, to eat, to go, whatever. In German, let's take the two ones we used, essen and nehmen. So, wir essen, ihr essen, sie essen. Wir nehmen, ihr nehmen, sie nehmen. In German, that's pretty close to what it is anyway. The only one that's different is ihr. Ihr, it's usually ihr nehmt, ihr esst, etc., etc. For the singulars, ich esse, du esse, er, sie, es esse. Ich nehme, du nehme, er, sie, es nehme. Done and dusted. That's it. Present tense, done, dusted, over and done with. For the past tense, in German, we have three past tenses. Three of them. Unbelievably. In Afrikaans, you have one. You have ek het geëet, ek het gesit, ek het gevat, whatever. In German, we have the simple past tense. We have which is ich saß, ich aß, ich nahm, etc. We have the perfect tense. which in German has two auxiliary verbs. In English, I have done this and that. In Afrikaans, ich hätte, whatever. In German, ich habe gegessen und dann bin ich in die Stadt gefahren. Again, why do you need a second auxiliary verb? Who knows? So for the perfect tense, what we do is we use only one auxiliary verb. We only use haben. Forget about the sein. Because also in German, as Mark Twain in his wonderful little essay, booklet, whatever, The Awful German Language, said the German language has, aside from the structures themselves being very illogical and duplicative, the German language has also got exceptions by the ton. There are exceptions to everything. You do this like this, and that's the rule. Except this. It's enough to drive you insane. So, for example, let's say you have the auxiliary verb sein, which you use for change of position. So you say the man has driven the car from Munich to Berlin. Der Mann, well, let's just say the man drove from Munich to Berlin. Der Mann ist von München nach Berlin gefahren. Because change of position. First he was in Munich, then he was in Berlin. Now you put him in a car. Der Mann hat das Auto von Berlin where was he? Von München nach Berlin gefahren. Why? Because grammar rule. Right? So we cut, and the Plusquamperfekt we can leave out anyway. So the third German tense. A lot of that stuff you can do with context. So we for survival German, we use only the perfect tense, and we use only one auxiliary verb, haben. That's it, done and dusted. For sneaky German, my other invention, which I love very much, the idea behind sneaky German is that you learn a German that the person that you're speaking to, the German person you're speaking, doesn't realize that you actually have discarded 25% of the grammar. So you use the perfect tense, you use it with two auxiliary verbs, haben and sein, and then you learn 9 verbs in the simple past tense, haben, sein, werden, and the modal verbs. And with that, you can spend 2 years talking to German people. And nobody will ever realize that you have, for example, chucked nearly 2, close on 2 of 3 past tenses into the rubbish bin. They won't know. That's why it's sneaky. Sneaky German. Love it. Where were we? Future tense. The future tense, that's not so bad in German, and you have already a contextual out in the sense that if you said, I am flying to Germany, ich werde nach Deutschland fliegen, you conjugate the verb werden and you put the infinitive at the end of the sentence, fine, fair enough. But if you give a specific time, in standard German, you say, im Dezember fliege ich nach Deutschland. In December, because you're putting the context, December is a specific time, I fly to Germany. You can use a present tense. So we do that. We provide context and we forget about the whole future tense as well. So that is just the 2 main things, which is the conjugation of the verbs across the 3 tenses and the nouns, the grammatical gender and the casus, the cases. As an introduction, those are the big ones. There are many, many, many other smaller reductions. And as I conceived it, this is an open source project. Open source humanitarian survival German was conceived of as a sort of open source humanitarian project. So if you find any of it, if you find the idea useful, and if you're involved with teaching somebody in Germany, for example, a bunch of migrants or something who are struggling, and you want to use this concept, feel free. It's fine. It's open source. Go for it. Do with it whatever you want. As Bruce Lee said, take what is useful and develop from there. So that's absolutely fine. One request I would have is, because this is now like an original idea, so I have no idea how the world is going to see this. I know there are going to be some German teachers out there who are going to want to find a rope and a tree and hang me from it. But they can also express themselves in the comments below. But I would really appreciate if you told me what you thought of the idea. And if you want a textbook of some sort, let me know. Put it in the comments. So that's about that. Thank you very much. Auf Wiedersehen. See you in my other videos. Bye.